I shouldn't be telling you this, but the files won't stop appearing. Every time I shut my laptop, I tell myself I'm done. Done investigating, done opening folders, done trying to understand. And yet, here I am, staring at a screen that insists it knows me better than I know myself. If the story reaches you, don't make the same mistake I did. Don't let curiosity get the better of you, because once these files start showing up, it's not just your attention they demand, it's your life. It began innocently enough. I dusted off my old laptop, the one I hadn't touched in years, just to see if it still worked. I expected a few slow boot-ups, maybe some corrupted downloads I'd forgotten about. What I didn't expect was a folder that wasn't there before. A folder named with my exact birth date, the kind of thing you'd expect only in your most paranoid nightmares. I hesitated, fingers hovering above the trackpad, knowing deep down that opening it would change everything. And yet I clicked. The screen flickered, and I thought I saw shadows moving behind the icons. Files filled the folder. Pictures, documents, even recordings, but none of them were mine. Or at least, none of them belonged to any version of me that had lived an ordinary life. Some files were labeled with times I had been asleep. Others contained text that described my exact thoughts moments before I had even thought them. Every new file felt like a warning, every detail like a breadcrumb leading me deeper into a trap I didn't even understand. I wish I could say I stopped there. I wish I could say I turned off the laptop and walked away. But there's something about knowing that the next folder exists, the one I shouldn't open, the one that promises more than I'm ready for, that makes it impossible to look away. And now, I'm telling you about it because maybe if someone else knows, someone else can prevent the same thing from happening to them. You should know this. The danger isn't just in the files themselves. It's in the curiosity, in the quiet pull that makes you think. Just one more folder won't hurt. It always hurts. And if you think this is just another story, you're already halfway down the same path I walked, one click away from discovering what should have remained hidden forever. I found the laptop buried under a stack of old notebooks and a pile of VHS tapes while cleaning out my apartment. It had been years since I'd touched it, and for a moment, holding it in my hands felt like holding a piece of the past. A past that seemed simpler, lighter, and unremarkable. I remembered sitting at the tiny desk by the window, the hum of the city outside, headphones clamped over my ears while I played games late into the night. The old keys felt familiar beneath my fingers, the plastic slightly worn in the places where my thumbs had rested for years. I powered it on, expecting the slow, groaning startup of a laptop that had been abandoned for so long. Instead, it booted faster than I remembered, the screen glowing with an almost unnatural clarity. There was a faint buzzing coming from the speakers, a low hum that didn't match any of the usual startup sounds. The clock in the corner read a time that was wrong by several hours, though I double-checked my system settings. At first, I laughed it off. Old machines sometimes behave oddly after years of neglect. I thought it was just dust in the circuits. But I was wrong. Opening my desktop was like opening a time capsule. Folders named after old projects, half-finished essays, and forgotten downloads filled the screen. Most of them sparked nostalgia. A presentation for a class I barely remembered, a music file I had composed in high school, a screenshot from a game I hadn't played in years. The laptop smelled faintly of electronics and old plastic, a smell that made me feel oddly comforted. I poured myself a cup of coffee, sitting cross-legged on the floor as I scrolled through the familiar files. And then I saw it. A new folder sitting innocuously in the corner of the desktop, labeled only with my birth date. My breath hitched. I didn't recognize it, hadn't created it, or at least I didn't think I had. Curious, I hovered over it, the cursor trembling slightly in my own hands. I tapped it once. Nothing happened at first. Then the folder expanded, revealing a handful of files with names that made no sense. Strings of numbers, random letters, and timestamps that didn't align with any memory I had. My heart beat a little faster. I clicked on one of the files, expecting maybe an old screenshot or a forgotten document. Instead, a low, distorted image appeared, a photo of my old bedroom from a perspective that no camera I owned could have captured. For a brief moment, I laughed nervously. Okay, that's weird, I muttered. assuming it was some kind of glitch or prank. But as more files appeared, each one more precise and personal than the last, the laughter died in my throat. Something about the laptop felt alive, and it was no longer the familiar, comforting relic I had hoped to rediscover. The folder sat there quietly, almost smugly, in the corner of my desktop. Its name was a date, September 7th, 2015. I don't know why that day felt familiar, though I could sense the faint pull of memory tugging at the edges of my mind. I hesitated. Something told me I shouldn't open it. And yet, curiosity, that old relentless itch, won. I double-clicked. The first file loaded slowly, the screen flickering as if protesting my choice. A grainy image appeared, my old bedroom. At first glance, it seemed harmless. The same bed, the same desk, the same cluttered shelves I remembered. But then I noticed the angles. The camera wasn't positioned where I had ever set one. It was as though someone, or something, had been watching me from the shadows, capturing the room without my knowledge. The blinds were slightly ajar, and in the corner, the faint outline of a figure, or maybe just a trick of the grainy resolution, made me freeze. I leaned back, voice barely a whisper. Did someone use my laptop after me? My words sounded absurd even as I said them. I wanted to believe it was a glitch, a corrupted image, a digital echo of some forgotten program. But then the second file loaded automatically, and the third, and the fourth. Each one was more disturbing than the last. Photos of my bedroom at different times, angles shifting, some almost impossibly high or low, showing corners I hadn't thought could be captured. I clicked frantically, hoping to close the folder, but more files kept appearing, like the laptop itself was feeding me, daring me to look closer. One was a screenshot of a Word document, lines of text that seemed eerily familiar. The words weren't exactly mine, but they captured thoughts I had had recently, private ideas I hadn't written down anywhere. My stomach sank. It was as if the laptop had a memory of me that extended beyond what I could possibly know. I leaned in, squinting at the next file. It was a recording. The faint sound of my own breathing filled the room, distorted, slowed down. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it over the speakers. The logical part of my brain screamed that this was impossible, yet every instinct, every instinctive fear told me it was real. I couldn't tear my eyes away, even as I felt a creeping sense of dread settle over my chest. And then, before I could click away, a text file appeared with a single line. "You haven't seen the last one." My pulse spiked. I wanted to shut the laptop, smash it even, but I couldn't. The words were a lure, a hook, a promise that there was more, far worse, waiting for me. The files weren't just showing me the past. They were teasing me, daring me to keep watching, daring me to discover what should never have existed. I swallowed hard, hands trembling, and whispered to the empty room, "This can't be real. It has to be some kind of glitch." But deep down, I knew it was real. I knew that whatever I had just uncovered was only the beginning. That folder, the first file, the impossible images, they were just a taste, a hint of a darkness I hadn't even begun to understand. And yet, despite every warning screaming in my mind, I couldn't stop. That was only the beginning. By the time I realized the first folder was just the tip of the iceberg, the laptop had taken on a rhythm of its own. Files appeared without warning, dropping silently onto the desktop like small, sinister gifts. Some were photos, but soon the nature of the files began to change. Audio clips, Word documents, videos, and each one carried a growing weight of dread I couldn't shake. The first audio file caught me off guard. It was my bedroom, recorded while I slept. The faint hum of the ceiling fan, the soft creak of floorboards as I shifted in my bed, and, unmistakably, my own breathing. My heart lurched. I had never set up a camera, never connected a microphone. The laptop had no reason to record me, and yet there it was, proof that I was being observed even in the moments I thought were private. Then came the Word documents. At first, they contained nothing but blank pages. But over the next few hours, text began appearing in real time, line by line. And the words weren't generic. They were my thoughts, written before I had even committed them to memory. "I wonder if I should check the kitchen before making coffee," One line read. Another, I don't know why I feel like something is watching me. My voice cracked as I whispered aloud, this is insane. The next document captured it. Every single word, spelled exactly as I had said it, appeared typed on the page as though the laptop was listening, recording, and documenting my every move. It wasn't just watching me, it was predicting me. I tested it, speaking nonsense, trying to outsmart it, hoping some randomness would break the pattern. But the files kept pace. A new document titled with the exact timestamp of my experiment appeared, detailing every syllable I had uttered. I felt a cold, sinking realization. The laptop wasn't just recording the past. It was anticipating the present, almost as if it were aware of time differently than I was. I stopped speaking aloud after that. My own voice had become a liability. Yet the files persisted, evolving further. One video captured me sitting on the floor with the laptop open, staring at a blank screen, but the image was twisted, slightly wrong, the angle impossible. Shadows moved where no shadows should have existed, and my own reflection seemed to flicker unnaturally in the monitor's glow. Another audio file contained laughter. Not mine, not human, somewhere between a whisper and a growl. I froze, listening to it loop over and over, each playback twisting the room into something alien. As the night wore on, the files began to reference the world outside my apartment. Emails I hadn't written, notes I hadn't typed, even glimpses of people I recognized on social media, though in settings I had never seen them. The sense of surveillance expanded beyond my room. It was as if the laptop had access to everything. My life, my digital history, my thoughts. And now it was reaching out, pulling me into a narrative I hadn't consented to. I sat back, hands shaking, staring at the screen. Every file, every recording, every word typed before I spoke it. It all suggested one terrible truth. The laptop had become something else, something beyond normal technology. Something that understood me more intimately than I understood myself. And then I noticed the last document, innocuous in appearance, but unsettling in its content. It didn't just describe my actions. It addressed the audience. They are watching you too. If you are reading this, you might already be a part of it. The weight of those words pressed down on me. The files weren't just private anymore. They were public, or at least, they had the power to involve anyone who came into contact with them. My paranoia spiked, and I realized the horror had shifted. What was once a personal nightmare was now expanding outward. I could feel it, a dark pulse radiating from the laptop, touching not only me but the invisible observers I could never see. And as I stared, frozen and desperate, I understood something terrifying. This was no longer about discovering the files. The files were discovering me. By the time I noticed the file, my hands were trembling too much to think clearly. It appeared silently on the desktop. No notification, no warning. Just a name that froze my blood. It was labeled with my full name and a date years in the future. Hesitation clawed at me, but part of me couldn't resist. I double-clicked, and the screen blinked once before revealing what I can only describe as a nightmare manifested in pixels. It was an obituary. My obituary. The text was perfectly formatted, crisp and official, though the words themselves were anything but comforting. They described a life I had lived, mistakes I had made, moments of triumph I hadn't even experienced yet. And then it ended with the date of my death, specific, certain, unflinching. My stomach turned, my hands shook violently, and I felt the floor shift beneath me, though I was still sitting at my desk. I wanted to close it, delete it, smash the laptop, anything to remove the words from existence. But I couldn't. Then another file opened automatically. A video. My own face filled the screen. My apartment, my laptop, my exact posture and expression as I stared at this screen now, recorded from a perspective that was impossible. I leaned back, trying to breathe, trying to convince myself it was a clever trick, some elaborate deepfake. This can't be real, I whispered to the empty room. My voice cracked. Maybe this is some sick joke. But the fear felt real. The laptop was no longer a passive object. It wasn't merely showing me the past or the present. It had started reaching into my future, folding my reality into a sequence I had no control over. Every file was more personal, more invasive than the last. I could feel its awareness, the subtle insistence in every new notification, every cursor blink, every image that appeared without my command. The sense of being watched had deepened into something else entirely. Something that didn't just observe, it judged, anticipated, and predicted. I found myself speaking to the screen, my voice shaky but desperate for some connection. "If you're hearing this, maybe you're already in the files too," I said, addressing not only the impossible presence behind the laptop, but the people who might eventually see this story. It was a warning, a plea, a confession all at once. The thought that anyone else could be dragged into this nightmare by mere curiosity sent chills through me. More files began appearing, like shadows gathering around me, each one more incomprehensible than the last. One contained a timeline of my life, punctuated with events I hadn't experienced yet, some of them trivial, others horrifying. Another showed correspondence I would supposedly have with friends, family, and strangers online, lines of conversation I hadn't typed but would at some point, as if the laptop was not only aware of my future actions but recording them in real time. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a hack, a prank, an AI far too advanced, but rationality faltered in the face of the impossible. The files weren't just documenting me. They were anticipating me, shaping me. I could feel a creeping inevitability, a predestined path that I was powerless to divert. The laptop had become a map of my life, with every file a marker pointing to a future I couldn't escape. And yet, somewhere beneath the fear, beneath the nausea and disbelief, a dark curiosity persisted. I knew, horrifyingly, that there was a final folder, the one the laptop was teasing me with. It had to be there, and I feared what it would contain more than anything, more than the obituary, more than the video, more than the creeping certainty of my own death. But I couldn't resist. The lure of knowing what came next, the desperate hope of gaining control, drew me in. I sat there, staring at the files, frozen in equal parts fascination and terror. My mind raced, trying to reconcile reality with what I was seeing. Every logical explanation collapsed under the weight of evidence. Every instinct screamed to stop, but something deeper urged me forward. I couldn't turn away. Couldn't. The laptop had ensnared me completely. And that was when I realized, with a sinking dread that seemed to press down from the ceiling, that the horror wasn't over. It was escalating. The files had prepared me for what I hadn't yet seen, for the obsession that would come next, for the breakdown that was inevitable. And though I wanted to step back, to walk away, the pull was too strong. I was already trapped. I stopped sleeping. At first, it was just a few restless hours here and there, blaming coffee or stress, convincing myself it was temporary. But the truth was far darker. I couldn't stop thinking about the laptop, about the files, about what they had shown me and what they promised to show next. Every night, I found myself clicking it open, waiting for something new, something that would explain the impossible reality I was living in. My friends started noticing. "Hey, you've been a little off lately," one of them said during lunch, eyes narrowing. "You look exhausted." "I'm fine," I lied, forcing a laugh, though my voice sounded hollow even to me. "Just a lot of work." Later, another friend caught me staring blankly at my screen in the library. "Are you seriously on that laptop again?" they whispered. "You haven't slept, have you?" "I'm just checking something," I muttered, closing the lid too quickly. But it was a lie even I knew wasn't true. The files weren't just something to check. They were a magnet, pulling me deeper into their impossible patterns. And now, the laptop was no longer content to observe silently. It began recording everything. Conversations, gestures, even the small murmurs I thought were private. I found files named after the exact time I had spoken with friends, the recordings precise down to every stutter and sigh. The contrast between my old life and this obsession was stark. I had once used this laptop for school assignments, for games, for watching dumb YouTube videos and staying in touch with friends. Now it consumed me entirely. Hours blurred into days. Meals were skipped. Phone calls went unanswered. The world beyond my apartment shrank until it barely existed. I was trapped inside a cycle that only the files could dictate. And the files weren't passive. They evolved. Each one seemed to anticipate my thoughts, record my reactions, even adapt to my attempts at ignoring them. I could feel a subtle, gnawing tension as if the laptop itself was sentient, shaping my reality to its own rhythm. Every notification made my stomach tighten. Every new file added to the mounting dread. It wasn't just documentation anymore. It was rewriting me. I remember staring at the screen one night, feeling the weight of it pressing down on my chest. The words on the screen, the images, the audio clips of my own life. These weren't just showing me my past. They were rewriting my future. And the realization left me cold, hollow, and simultaneously desperate. Desperate for answers. Desperate for proof that I hadn't lost my mind entirely. My obsession became a blur of clicking, scrolling, and opening file after file. Each discovery, each impossible recording, each horrifying prediction, drew me closer to the inevitable. I couldn't resist the lure of the final folder. Somewhere within the labyrinth of folders and files, the one the laptop had been teasing me with since the beginning awaited. I could feel it lurking at the edge of my consciousness, a promise of truths too terrible to imagine yet impossible to ignore. And so I stayed, night after night, unable to pull away, eyes locked on the glowing screen. Friends drifted, blurred by exhaustion and my own isolation. I didn't notice it most of the time. The laptop had become my universe. I told myself it was just curiosity, just a desire for understanding, but deep down I knew better. I was ensnared, completely, and the final folder, the folder that could change everything or end everything, was waiting. The final folder sat in the corner of my desktop like a patient predator, its name a single word, Andy. I stared at it for what felt like hours, my fingers hovering above the trackpad, heart hammering, mind screaming at me to close the laptop, to walk away, to do anything but click. But the curiosity, the morbid, irresistible curiosity, won. I double-clicked. The screen flickered violently, then stabilized, revealing a grid of files unlike anything I had seen before. Videos, hundreds of them, all distorted, all warped, all unmistakably me. And the most terrifying part? Each video was me narrating this very story, the words leaving my mouth in the same trembling, confessional tone I had spoken them moments ago, or at least moments ago in some twisted version of time I didn't understand. My face, my expressions, my gestures, all replayed back at me with a subtle wrongness, as though some unseen editor had rearranged reality itself. I tried to close a video. It wouldn't budge. I tried to delete a file. The system ignored me. The laptop had become a lockbox of inevitability, a conduit for something that no human mind could truly comprehend. And then I noticed images scattered between the videos. Faces in the crowd, blurred, distorted, yet hauntingly familiar. They weren't random. These were people, viewers perhaps, or maybe me imagining the audience, watching silently from screens I couldn't see, observing my every move. I felt exposed, like a marionette under invisible strings. A low buzzing filled the speakers. A new file appeared in the folder, larger than the rest. I hesitated, my fingers trembling. I clicked it, and the screen shifted, revealing a countdown timer. Its numbers ticked down with a horrifying precision, each second dragging my pulse into the pit of my stomach. And then the numbers aligned with reality in a way that made my skin crawl. The countdown ended at the exact moment I was recording this, posting this, living this. Every heartbeat, every breath, every word spoken seemed synchronized with the clock on the screen, as if my life had become a pre-edited video that I was trapped inside. I laughed nervously, a hollow, broken sound. I guess my laptop's better at editing horror than I am, I muttered, trying to inject humor into a situation that had long since eclipsed any sense of safety or normalcy. The laughter felt wrong, echoing back at me from the speakers, warped and distorted like a reflection of my own fear. I felt my chest tighten. I realized the horror wasn't just what I had seen, but what was about to come, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. The files began to shift again, images blending with video, sounds overlapping, creating a cacophony that felt alive. I saw myself from angles I couldn't possibly have captured, gestures I hadn't made, expressions I didn't remember. And then the screen displayed a message, simple, chilling, direct. Don't check your devices. If you find a new folder after watching this, it's already too late. I wanted to close the laptop. I wanted to delete everything. I wanted to run, to scream, to leave this nightmare behind. But my hands betrayed me, hovering over the trackpad as if some invisible force compelled me to stay. The audience, if anyone was watching this, needed to understand what I was facing, needed to grasp the magnitude of the situation. I typed a warning into a new document, my fingers shaking. If you see a folder appear that wasn't there before, don't open it. You can't fight what's inside. I pressed play on another video, and there I was again, narrating, confessing, warning all at once. The timing was impossible. The files, the images, the distorted laughter, the countdown, everything was synchronized. Everything knew what I was about to do before I did it. The laptop wasn't just a machine anymore. It had become a reflection of inevitability, a mirror showing the darkest parts of my life, my choices, my obsessions. I sank into the chair, exhausted, my mind fraying at the edges. My pulse raced as I scrolled through the remaining files, each more personal, more invasive than the last. There was one file left, the final file. I knew, without knowing, that it contained the culmination of everything, the truth I wasn't ready to face. But like a moth to a flame, I couldn't look away. The laptop had ensnared me entirely, and the final reveal was inevitable. I whispered to the empty room, my voice breaking, trembling with fear. This is it, the last one, the one I shouldn't open. But I have to know. The screen glitched, numbers flickering in the countdown. Faces, videos, whispers. They all seemed to converge, pressing in from the edges of reality. And as I stared, helpless, the overwhelming certainty hit me. The files didn't just observe life, they dictated it. And anyone who saw this video, anyone who reads this confession might already be part of it, already caught in the web the laptop had woven. I pressed play on the final file. I don't know how to end this. I don't know if there's an ending. The final file played, the countdown hit 0, or at least I think it did, and now the screen is different. Glitches ripple across the desktop, static crawling over every icon, warping the images, blending the videos into something unrecognizable. My hands are shaking so badly I can barely hold the mouse, and yet, part of me can't stop watching. The laptop hums, low and insistent, like a heartbeat in the room. I shouldn't be telling you this, but I have to. Maybe if someone else knows, someone else can avoid what I can't. If you're seeing this, if you're hearing this, check your devices. Look for new folders. Look for files that weren't there before. And if you find one, don't open it. Don't make the same mistake I did. The pull is subtle, almost seductive, but it will consume you. I glanced away for a second, just a second, and when I looked back, a file was already there, blank at first. Then text appeared, typing itself in real time, words forming that I swear were not mine. They're watching you. You're next. My pulse spiked. My vision tunneled. I wanted to close the laptop. I wanted to scream, but the pull is there, unmistakable, and I can feel it reaching beyond this screen, beyond this room. I think it's reaching toward you. I typed this message, these words, in a desperate attempt to warn anyone who might stumble across it. Maybe you'll think I'm exaggerating. Maybe you'll laugh. Maybe you'll assume it's just another horror story. But that would be the same mistake I made, thinking it's just a story, thinking the files are just files, thinking the laptop is just a machine. They are not. They are alive in a way that defies explanation, a web that entangles reality, perception, and everything in between. I can see the screen warping again. Faces appear in the static, blurry but unmistakably human, watching, observing, recording. Some of them look familiar, others don't. But all of them carry the same weight of inevitability I felt when I first opened the final folder. And I realize, with a cold, creeping dread, that I am no longer the observer. I am part of it. And if you're seeing this, you might be too. I tried to speak, to tell you more, to give instructions, but the sound is breaking up. My own voice is glitched, overlapping, repeating fragments in a way that makes comprehension almost impossible. The screen flickers violently, and I can feel the room itself bending, folding into the static. My pulse pounds in sync with the hum of the machine, and I realize I don't know where the files end and I begin. Look around your own devices. Check your desktop. Check your downloads, your documents, your photos. If something appears that wasn't there before, if a file seems familiar in a way that makes your skin crawl, close it. Close it now. Do not engage. And yet, I know you're already reading, already watching. The pull is subtle, insidious, impossible to resist. I want to tell you what happens next, but I can't. The countdown is over. I don't know if I survived it. I don't know if I am still me. The static crawls over my words, over my face, over the videos on the screen. And yet, I have to leave this warning. If a folder appears after this, if a file types itself while you aren't looking, don't ignore it. Don't. I can hear whispers in the glitches now, overlapping voices, some mine, some not, some too distorted to recognize. And I realize the last horrifying truth. The files are never done. They spread. They observe. They pull others in. If you're seeing this, congratulations, you might already be part of them. I don't know if I'll ever speak again. I don't know if the story ends here, or if it will loop infinitely, feeding itself through anyone who reads it. But I can say one thing with certainty. I shouldn't be telling you this. And yet, here I am. The screen hums. The static swallows my words. And if you see it, you are not alone.